Kethra had seen many things in her 30 years of life. She had watched stars die from the observation deck of her father's trading ship. She had walked on worlds where the sky burned orange and the rain fell upward. She had treated patients from 100 different species, learning the secrets of their strange bodies, but she had never seen anything like this. The creature on the ground was small. It had no scales, no armor, no claws. Its skin was soft and brown, covered in a thin layer of what looked like fabric, red liquid blood. She realized pooled beneath its body. 2 Scarith soldiers stood over it, their massive reptilian forms blocking the light from the station's artificial sun. Kethra pressed herself against the wall of the corridor, her heart's beating fast. She knew she should walk away. The Scarith Dominion was the most powerful empire in the quadrant. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They feared nothing and no one. And the Valorians, her people, were neutral. They had no army, no weapons. Only their shields and their diplomacy kept them safe. Getting involved in Scarith business was suicide, but she could not look away. One of the soldiers kicked the creature on the ground. It made a sound, a grunt of pain that was somehow different from any she had heard before. The creature tried to rise, pushing itself up on trembling arms, but the second soldier slammed its foot down on the creature's back. "Tell us about Earth's defenses," the first soldier hissed. His voice was cold and sharp, like metal scraping against stone. "Tell us about your colonies, your fleet positions, your weapon systems." The creature, the human, Kethra suddenly remembered. That was what they were called. Lifted its head. Its face was swollen and bloody. One of its eyes was completely shut, but the other eye, dark and fierce, stared up at the Scarith soldier with something that made Kethra's breath catch in her throat. Defiance. Pure, burning defiance. "Go to hell," the human said. Its voice was weak and broken, but the words were clear. The Scarith soldier made a sound of disgust. He reached down and grabbed the human by its hair, lifting it off the ground. The human cried out in pain but did not beg, did not plead. "Your species is weak," the soldier said. "Soft, fragile. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. You are nothing but prey animals who learn to build ships. And soon, we will hunt you to extinction." He threw the human against the wall. It hit hard and slid to the floor, leaving a trail of red on the metal surface. Kethra's medical training screamed at her. The human was dying, internal bleeding, broken bones, trauma to the skull. Without treatment, it would be dead within the hour. She should walk away. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Never get involved with the Scarith. Never draw their attention. We survive by being invisible. But then the human moved. Slowly, painfully. It pushed itself up again. It could barely stand. Its legs shook. Blood dripped from its mouth, but it stood anyway, facing the 2 massive soldiers who could kill it with a single blow. "Is that all you've got?" the human whispered. Something broke inside Kethra. Something she did not know she had. She stepped out of the shadows. "Stop." Her voice rang through the corridor, high and clear. "This creature is under my medical protection." The Scarith soldiers turned to look at her. Their yellow eyes were full of surprise and anger. She was Valorian, small, thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. She looked like a child's toy compared to their massive forms. "Walk away, little one," the first soldier growled. "This does not concern you." Kethra's hands were shaking, but she forced herself to stand tall. She reached into her coat and pulled out her medical credentials, a small silver disc that projected her information into the air. "I am Kethra, licensed medical officer under the Galactic Medical Accords. Article 7 clearly states that any being receiving medical treatment cannot be detained, harmed, or interrogated without the attending physician's consent." She took a deep breath. "This human is my patient. I am taking it to my ship for treatment. If you try to stop me, you will be in violation of intergalactic law." The soldiers looked at each other. Then they laughed. "You think we care about your laws?" the second soldier asked. "We are Skarath. We make the laws." "Then make this law," Kethra said, her voice steadier than she felt. "The medical accords are enforced by every major power in the galaxy, including the Collective, including the Federation, including the merchant guilds." She paused. "Do you really want to explain to your superiors why you started a diplomatic incident over one dying prisoner?" The soldiers' laughter died. They looked at each other again, and Kethra could see them thinking. The Skarath were brutal, but they were not stupid. They had learned to pick their battles carefully. A new figure stepped out of the shadows. He was taller than the soldiers, his scales darker and older. Gold decorations hung from his neck and arms, marking him as someone important. His eyes were the color of frozen blood. "Lord Vexnar," the soldiers said together, bowing their heads. The Skarath Lord walked forward slowly, his claws clicking against the metal floor. He stopped in front of Kithra and looked down at her. She felt like a small animal facing a predator. "You are brave, little Valorian," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Or perhaps you are simply foolish. Tell me, do you know what happens to those who interfere with the Dominion's business?" Kethra forced herself to meet his eyes. "I know what happens to those who violate the medical accords." "Do you?" For a long moment, no one moved. Then Lord Vexnar smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Take your patient," he said. "Heal it. Save its worthless life." He leaned closer, and his breath was hot against her face. "But know this, little one, I will remember your face. I will remember your name, and one day, when your people least expect it, I will come for you. Your world will burn, and you will watch." He stepped back and gestured to his soldiers. They moved aside, creating a path to the human. Kethra did not hesitate. She ran to the human and knelt beside it. Up close, she could see how badly hurt it was. Its breathing was shallow and weak. Its skin was cold and wet with sweat. "Can you walk?" she asked. The human looked at her with its one good eye. Who are you?" "Someone who is probably going to regret this," Kethra muttered. She pulled the human's arm over her shoulder and lifted. The human was heavier than it looked, but she managed to stand. "Come on. My ship is not far." They walked slowly down the corridor, past the Skarath soldiers, past Lord Vexnar with his frozen smile. Every step felt like a mile. Every second felt like an hour. But finally, they reached her ship. The door closed behind them, and Kethra let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. She helped the human onto the medical bed and began connecting monitors and treatment systems. The human's vital signs were bad, but not hopeless. With proper care, it would survive. "Why?" the human asked suddenly. Its voice was barely a whisper. Kethra paused. "Why what? Why did you help me? You could have died. Your people, they could suffer for this." Kethra did not answer for a moment. She checked the human's wounds, applied healing gel, started the bone regenerator. Finally, she spoke. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because no one deserves to die like that alone and afraid." She looked at the human's battered face. "Because someone had to." The human stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, painfully, it reached out and took her hand. Its grip was weak, but there was something in it, something warm and strong that she could not explain. "Thank you," the human said. "My name is Maya. Maya Chen. I won't forget this, and neither will Earth." Kethra smiled sadly. "Rest now. You are safe." Maya closed her eyes, and soon her breathing became deep and steady. She was asleep. Kethra sat beside her, watching the stars through the ship's window. She did not know what she had just done. She did not know what it would mean for her future, for her family, for her world. But she knew one thing. She had done the right thing, and somehow, that was enough. 3 weeks passed like a dream. Kethra had delivered Maya to the nearest human outpost, a small station on the edge of Earth's territory. The humans there had been strange. They had hugged Maya and cried. They had tried to hug Kethra too, which was very confusing because Valorians did not hug strangers. They had thanked her over and over again, pressing gifts into her hands, food, medicine, a small metal pin with Earth's symbol on it. "Keep it," one of them had said, a young man with tears in his eyes. "It means you're a friend of Earth. Always." Kethra had smiled and nodded and left as quickly as she could. She did not understand humans. They were so emotional, so loud, so intense. Everything they felt completely, with their whole being. It was exhausting. Now she was home, on Valoria Prime, standing in her mother's garden, and watching the twin suns set over the crystal mountains. The sky turned pink and gold and purple, colors so beautiful they made her chest hurt. She had missed this place. "Kethra." She turned. Her father stood in the doorway of their home. His face was gray and tired, and there was something in his eyes that made her stomach feel cold. "What is wrong?" she asked. You need to come inside, now. She followed him into the house. Her mother was sitting at the table, her hands folded in front of her. She had been crying. Beside her stood two tall figures in dark uniforms, officers of the Valorian High Guard. Kethra of House Velnor. One of the officers said, his voice flat and official. You are under arrest for violation of Valorian neutrality and interference in the affairs of the Scareth Dominion. The words did not make sense at first. Kethra stood there, frozen, as the officers walked toward her. One of them took her arms and pulled them behind her back. Cold metal clicked around her wrists. Wait, she said. I don't understand. I saved someone's life. That's not a crime. The Scareth have filed a formal complaint, the officer said. They are demanding your extradition. The High Council has decided to comply. Extradition? Kethra's voice cracked. They'll kill me. That is not our concern. The officer's face showed nothing. Our concern is the safety of Valoria Prime. The Scareth have 300 warships. We have none. If giving them one criminal prevents war, then that is what we must do. Kethra looked at her mother. Mother, please. But her mother would not meet her eyes. She just sat there, crying silently, her hands trembling in her lap. Her father stepped forward. His face was hard and cold, like stone. You brought this on yourself, he said. You knew the rules. You knew what would happen if you got involved. And you did it anyway. He shook his head. You are no daughter of mine. The words hit Kethra like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The officers pulled her toward the door, and she let them. She had no strength left to fight. The next few days blurred together. She was taken to a holding cell in the capital city. She was given a trial, but it was not really a trial. The judges had already decided. The evidence was clear. She had interfered with Skarath business. She had violated neutrality. She was guilty. The sentence was extradition to Scareth Prime, where she would be publicly executed as an example to others who might think of defying the Dominion. Kethra sat in her cell and stared at the wall. She thought about Maya Chen and her fierce eyes. She thought about the human outpost and the people who had hugged her. She thought about the little metal pin, still hidden in her pocket. Had it been worth it? She did not know anymore. On the 5th day, they came for her. 4 Scareth soldiers in full armor, their scales gleaming under the lights, their eyes full of cruel amusement. Behind them walked Lord Vexenar himself, dressed in ceremonial robes, a smile on his ancient face. Hello again, little Valorian, he said. I told you I would come for you. Did you think I was joking? Kethra said nothing. What was there to say? They led her out of the cell and through the corridors of the Valorian government building. Officials and workers watched her pass, their faces blank, their eyes empty. No one spoke. No one tried to help. She was alone. They reached the main chamber, where the High Council sat in their floating chairs, their expressions grave and tired. The Scareth delegation stood on one side of the room, 20 soldiers and Lord Vexenar, waiting to claim their prize. Kethra of House Velnor, the council leader said, you have been found guilty of crimes against the Scareth Dominion. In accordance with our treaty obligations, you are hereby. The doors of the chamber burst open. Everyone turned to look. A figure walked in. No, 3 figures. The one in front was a human male, tall and broad, with gray hair at his temples and dark skin that gleamed under the lights. He wore a black suit with gold buttons and walked with the confidence of someone who owned the room. Behind him came 2 more humans. They were different. They wore heavy armor, dark green and covered with strange symbols. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, and they carried weapons, big, black weapons that hummed with energy. The Scareth soldiers reached for their own weapons, but the human in the suit raised his hand. I wouldn't do that if I were you, he said. His voice was calm and pleasant, like someone discussing the weather. My friends here are a bit nervous. Loud noises make them reactive. Lord Vexenar stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. Who are you? How dare you enter this chamber uninvited? The human smiled. It was not a friendly smile. My name is David Okonkwo. I am the ambassador of the United Earth government. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card, holding it up for everyone to see. And I have a message for this council. The council leader leaned forward. Ambassador, this is a legal proceeding. You have no authority here. I'm not here for your proceeding. Okonkwo's eyes moved across the room until they found Kethra. For a moment, his expression softened. Then it turned hard again as he looked at Lord Vexnar. "I'm here for her." Lord Vexnar laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "You? A human? You think you can take what belongs to the Dominion?" Okonkwo did not flinch. The woman standing there saved a human life. Lieutenant Maya Chen, Earth Defense Force. That makes her family. He paused, letting the word hang in the air. "And Earth protects its family. She is a criminal." Vexnar snarled. "She interfered with our interrogation of a prisoner of war. She showed mercy to a wounded soldier." Okonkwo's voice grew colder. "Something your species apparently doesn't understand." The room fell silent. Kethra watched, her heart pounding, unable to believe what was happening. A human, a member of a species the galaxy considered weak and unimportant, was standing up to the Scareth Dominion. For her, "This is ridiculous," Vexnar said. He turned to the council. "Proceed with the extradition. The humans have no power here. They have no fleet, no army. They are nothing but soft, weak prey animals who—" "Careful." Okonkwo's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You're talking about my species. And what will you do about it?" Vexnar sneered. "Cry? Hug each other? Write a strongly worded letter?" Okonkwo reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and suddenly the air above the chamber filled with light, a holographic display showing ships. Hundreds of ships. Human ships. Armed and ready. Moving through space. "No," Okonkwo said softly. "We'll do this." He looked at the council, then at Vexnar, then at Kethra. His eyes were steady and calm, like deep water hiding dangerous currents. "Here's the message," he said. "From Earth, from all 8 billion of us." He took a breath. "The woman who saved Lieutenant Chen is under Earth's protection. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact. Any hostile action against her, her family, or her world will be considered an act of war against Earth and all her colonies." He smiled again. And this time there was something wild and dangerous in it. "And trust me, Lord Vexnar, you don't want that." Vexnar's face twisted with rage. But before he could speak, Okonkwo turned and walked toward Kethra. The 2 armored soldiers followed, their weapons trained on the Scareth. Okonkwo stopped in front of her and looked into her eyes. "Lieutenant Chen told me what you did," he said quietly. "How you risked everything to save her. How you carried her to your ship when you could barely walk yourself." Kethra could not speak. Her throat was too tight. Okonkwo smiled, a real smile this time, warm and kind. "Welcome to the family, Kethra. Earth's got your back now." He turned and offered her his arm. "Shall we?" Kethra looked at the council, at her father, who stood in the corner with shame and confusion on his face, at Lord Vexnar, whose eyes burned with hatred and promised revenge. Then she looked at the human standing before her, offering her something no one else had, hope. She took his arm, and together, they walked out of the chamber, leaving the stunned silence behind them. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Within hours of Ambassador Okonkwo's appearance on Valoria Prime, news spread across every system, every station, every world with access to the galactic communication network. The humans, those soft, weak, short-lived creatures that most species barely noticed, had just challenged the Scareth Dominion. Most people laughed. The Scareth had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had the largest military in the quadrant. Their warships were legendary, massive vessels of black metal and fire, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. They had never lost a war. They had never retreated. They were, in every way that mattered, the most dangerous species in known space. And the humans? They had 40 colony worlds, a small fleet of perhaps 60 capital ships. They were young, barely 200 years since they first left their home planet. They were fragile, with soft bodies and short lives. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. By galactic standards, they were barely worth noticing. But Lord Vexnar was not laughing. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Flame, watching the stars slide past as his fleet moved toward Valoria Prime. 300 warships followed behind him, each one crewed by the finest soldiers the Dominion had to offer. This should have been a simple mission. Go to Valoria, take the criminal, execute her publicly, and send a message to anyone else who might think of defying the Dominion. Simple, clean, easy. But then the humans had interfered. Vexnar thought about the human ambassador's eyes, There had been something in them, something cold and hard and dangerous, something that did not match the soft, emotional species he had studied in reports. "My lord," one of his officers said, "we are receiving transmissions from Earth space." "Show me." The main screen flickered to life. At first, Vexnar did not understand what he was seeing. It looked like ships, human ships, but there were too many of them. Far too many. "What is this?" he demanded. "The humans are mobilizing, my lord. All of their ships. Military, civilian, cargo, mining everything." Vexnar watched as the screen filled with vessels. Sleek warships emerged from stations that had appeared empty. Massive cargo haulers dropped their containers and revealed hidden weapons. Mining ships detached their equipment and activated engines that burned far too hot for mining vessels. "That's not possible," Vexnar whispered. "Our intelligence said they only had 60 capital ships." "Our intelligence was wrong, my lord." On the screen, a message appeared. It was simple text, transmitted on all frequencies, in every language known to the galaxy. From the United Earth government to all species and nations, a Valorian citizen named Kethra saved the life of a human soldier. For this act of mercy, she has been sentenced to death by the Scarith Dominion. Earth does not accept this. From this moment, Kethra of Valoria is under the protection of Earth and all her colonies. Any hostile action against her, her people, or her world will be considered an act of war. To the Scarith Dominion, you have one chance to withdraw. Release your claim on Kethra. Leave Valorian space. And this ends peacefully. To everyone else, this is who we are. Hurt one of ours, and you answer to all of us. Save one of ours, and we will move stars for you. Earth remembers. Vexnar read the message 3 times. Then he started to laugh. "They're insane," he said. "Completely insane. They're going to war over one person. One worthless alien who isn't even human." His officers shifted uncomfortably. None of them laughed. "My lord," his second-in-command said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider. If the humans truly have more ships than we thought." "More ships?" Vexnar turned on him, eyes blazing. "Look at them. They're cargo ships. Mining vessels, civilian transports held together with hope and string. Our warriors will crush them in minutes." He slammed his fist against the console. "No, we will not run from humans. We will not be afraid of soft, weak prey animals. We will go to Valoria. We will take what is ours, and we will teach these creatures what happens when you challenge the Dominion." He turned back to the screen. "All ships, maintain course. Full speed to Valoria Prime." Far across the galaxy, on a planet called Earth, similar scenes were playing out in every city, every town, every home. People gathered in the streets, watching the news on massive public screens. They watched their government's declaration. They watched the Scarith fleet moving toward Valoria. They watched, and they waited. In a small town in Japan, an old woman named Yuki Tanaka put on her uniform for the first time in 20 years. It still fit. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. "One more time," she whispered. In a factory in Germany, workers stopped building cars and started building weapons. The government had asked for volunteers. Everyone volunteered. In a university in Brazil, a young student put down her books and walked to the nearest recruitment center. The line stretched around the block. She waited for 6 hours. She did not complain. In America, in China, in India, in Nigeria, in every country, on every continent, the same thing was happening. People were leaving their jobs, their schools, their homes. They were going to war, not for territory, not for resources, not for power, for one person. One alien who had shown kindness to one of them. The Scarith did not understand this. They could not understand it. In their culture, kindness was weakness. Mercy was stupidity. You did not risk anything for strangers. You did not fight for people who could offer you nothing in return. But humans were different. Humans remembered. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Phoenix Rising, and watched her fleet assemble. 412 ships. It was the largest human fleet ever gathered. Every ship they had, every weapon they could find, every person who could fly, fight, or fire a gun. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we're receiving a message from the Valorian government. They're begging us to stand down. They say they'll hand over Kethra peacefully. They don't want a war." Tanaka's face did not change. And Kethra? What does she want? There was a pause. She says she doesn't want anyone to die for her. She says she'll go with the Scareth if it will prevent bloodshed. Tanaka closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a terrible war long ago. She thought about the stories her grandmother had told her, stories of cruelty and courage, of darkness and light, of people who stood up when no one else would. Tell her, Tanaka said softly, that this isn't about what she wants. It's about what's right. She opened her eyes. And tell the Valorians that Earth does not abandon its friends. Not now. Not ever. She turned to her officers. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Valoria Prime. The fleet moved as one. Hundreds of ships aligning their engines, calculating their courses, preparing to cross the vast emptiness of space in the blink of an eye. On the surface of Valoria Prime, Kethra stood at a window and watched the sky. Ambassador Okonkwo stood beside her, his face calm and steady. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. Your people will die. Many of them. For me. She shook her head. I'm not worth that. Okonkwo looked at her. His eyes were kind but firm. You saved one of us. That makes you family. And family doesn't get to decide if they're worth saving. He put a hand on her shoulder. Besides, this isn't just about you anymore. It's about sending a message. What message? Okonkwo smiled. That if you're kind to a human, we'll never forget it. That we'll stand by you no matter what. That we'll fight for you. Die for you. Move heaven and earth for you. His smile faded, replaced by something harder. And the other message too. The one for the Scareth, and everyone like them. What's that? That if you hurt us, if you hurt anyone we care about, we will come for you. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. Now. With everything we have. He looked out the window, at the darkening sky. The galaxy thinks we're weak because we're kind. They think mercy is stupidity. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Above them, the sky lit up with fire as the first Scareth ships entered orbit. And behind them, still hidden in hyperspace but coming fast, the human fleet raced toward battle. Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled across every human frequency, reaching every ship, every soldier, every person who wore Earth's uniform. This is Admiral Tanaka. All ships, all crews, listen carefully. In a few minutes, we're going to fight the largest military in the known galaxy. They have more experience. They have heavier armor. They have every advantage except one. She paused. They don't know what it means to fight for someone you love. They don't understand loyalty. They don't understand family. They think we're soft because we care about each other. But that's not weakness. That's our greatest strength. Her voice grew stronger. Today, we fight for Kethra. We fight for Lieutenant Chen. We fight for everyone who has ever shown kindness to a human and been punished for it. We fight to show the universe what happens when you mess with Earth. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 412 ships appeared in the sky above Valoria Prime, their hulls gleaming, their weapons charging, their crews ready. Admiral Tanaka opened a channel to the Scareth flagship. Lord Vexnar, this is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Fleet. You have one chance to leave. Take it. There will not be a second offer. There was a long silence. Then Vexnar's voice came back, full of arrogance and contempt. You dare threaten me? Come then, little humans. Come and die. Tanaka smiled. So be it. And the Battle of Valoria began. The first shots lit up the darkness like lightning. Scareth energy beams tore through space. Bright red lines of death that streaked toward the human fleet. The beams were massive, powerful enough to cut through asteroids, designed to destroy anything they touched. The human ships scattered like leaves in a storm. They were smaller than the Scareth vessels, faster, more agile, but far less armored. A single hit from a Scareth main cannon would destroy any of them instantly. The Dominion's strategy was simple. Stand your ground, fire everything, overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower. But the humans did not fight like that. Admiral Tanaka watched the battle unfold from her command chair, her eyes tracking dozens of screens at once. She saw the Scareth formation, a massive wall of black ships, moving together, firing together, a strategy that had worked for 1,000 years. All fighters, launch, she said calmly. Frigates, begin harassment pattern alpha. Capital ships, hold position, and draw fire. The human fleet exploded into motion. Thousands of small fighters poured out of the larger ships, swarms of tiny vessels that dove toward the Scareth line. The Scareth gunners tried to track them, but there were too many, moving too fast, coming from too many directions. What are they doing? Lord Vexnar demanded, watching the chaos from his bridge. This is not tactics. This is madness. They're getting close, his weapons officer said, his voice uncertain. Our main guns can't track targets that small at close range. Then use the secondary batteries. Use everything. Destroy them. But the human fighters were already among the Scareth ships. They buzzed around the massive vessels like insects, firing at sensors, engines, weapon ports, any weak point they could find. They were not doing much damage individually, but there were so many of them, and they never stopped moving. Meanwhile, the human frigates had circled around the Scareth formation and were hitting them from behind. They fired their missiles and ran, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. It was like trying to catch smoke with your hands. This is impossible, Vexnar growled. They're not fighting properly. He was right. They were not fighting properly. They were fighting like humans. On the Phoenix Rising, Admiral Tanaka watched her fighters die. One by one, they were being shot down, their small vessels no match for Scareth weapons when they finally connected. But every fighter that fell had taken something with it: a sensor array destroyed, a gun disabled, an engine damaged, death by 1,000 cuts. Admiral, her tactical officer said, we're taking heavy losses. 30% of our fighters are gone. I know. Tanaka's voice was steady. Tell them to keep pressing. We need to break their formation. They won't break. Scareth never break formation. Tanaka smiled. Then we'll make them. She pressed a button on her console. Captain Morris, you're up. On the edge of the battle, a single human ship powered up its engines. It was an old cargo hauler, converted into a warship in the rush to mobilize. It was slow, ugly, and falling apart. But it had one thing the other ships did not have: a core full of unstable fuel. Captain Emily Morris sat in her command chair, watching the Scareth flagship grow larger in her view screen. Her crew had already evacuated to escape pods. She was alone. For Kethra, she whispered. She pushed the throttle to maximum. The cargo ship accelerated toward the Scareth line, faster and faster, its engines screaming with the strain. The Scareth gunners saw it coming and opened fire, but it was too late. The ship was too close, moving too fast. It hit the Scareth heavy cruiser Wrath of Stars directly in the middle. The explosion was visible from the surface of Valoria Prime. A ball of white fire expanded outward, consuming the cruiser and 3 ships nearby. When it faded, there was nothing left but debris. Captain Morris was gone, but she had taken 4 Scareth warships with her, and the Scareth formation had broken. Press the attack, Tanaka ordered. All ships, everything you have. Now, the human fleet surged forward. They were still outgunned, still outnumbered, but the Scareth had lost their coordination. Ships were breaking away, trying to reform, getting in each other's way. It was chaos. Lord Vexnar watched in disbelief as his perfect fleet fell apart. This is not possible, he kept saying. This is not possible. My lord, his officer said urgently. We need to fall back. Regroup. Our losses are... No. Vexnar slammed his fist against the console. We do not retreat from prey animals. All ships, continue the attack. Destroy them all. But his ships were not listening anymore. They were too busy trying to survive. The battle lasted for hours. It spread across the entire system, from the orbit of Valoria Prime to the outer asteroid fields. Ships burned and died on both sides. The darkness of space was filled with fire and debris, and the frozen bodies of the fallen. The humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. A pilot named James Rodriguez flew his damaged fighter directly into a Scareth cannon, destroying it before it could fire on a civilian transport. He died with a smile on his face. A crew of engineers on the destroyer Defiant held their ship together with their bare hands, welding broken pipes and rewiring damaged systems, while the battle raged around them. They saved their ship and 200 lives. A medic named Sarah Kim dragged wounded soldiers to safety through corridors filled with smoke and fire, making trip after trip until her own strength gave out. She collapsed next to the last person she saved, both of them alive because she refused to stop, and Admiral Tanaka led from the front, pushing her flagship deeper and deeper into the Scareth line. "Admiral, we've lost 40% of our fleet," her officer reported. "We can't sustain this much longer." Tanaka looked at the tactical display. The Scareth had lost more, nearly half their ships were disabled or destroyed, but they still had numbers. They could still win if they regrouped, unless someone stopped them. "Plot a course for the Eternal Flame," she said quietly. Her bridge crew turned to look at her. They knew what she was planning. "Admiral, that's an order." Tanaka's voice was calm. "If we take out their flagship, their command structure collapses. The battle ends." She looked at her crew, the people she had served with for years. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel. I'll need only a skeleton crew." No one moved. "I said evacuate." Her first officer stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral." "No." He looked at the others, and they nodded. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." Tanaka stared at them for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real smile, full of warmth and pride. "Thank you," she said softly. She turned back to the view screen. The Eternal Flame loomed ahead, massive and dark, its weapons still firing. All power to engines, ram speed. The Phoenix Rising shot forward, accelerating faster than any ship its size should be able to move. The Scareth tried to stop it, throwing everything they had at the charging vessel. The shields failed. The hull breached. Fires broke out across the ship, but it did not stop. At the last moment, just before impact, Tanaka gave one final order. "All hands, abandon ship." Escape pods burst from the Phoenix Rising like seeds from a dying flower. The ship continued forward. A burning arrow aimed at the heart of the Scareth fleet. It hit the Eternal Flame at full speed. The explosion was the largest of the battle. It consumed both ships completely, turning them into an expanding cloud of fire and metal. Lord Vexanar died in that explosion, along with his command staff and his dreams of conquest. The Scareth fleet, leaderless and broken, began to retreat. The humans had won. Hours later, Admiral Tanaka floated in her escape pod, looking out the small window at the debris field that had been her ship. She was burned and bleeding, her uniform torn, her body exhausted, but she was alive. "Admiral," a voice came over her radio. "We've got you on sensors. Rescue shuttle incoming." She laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. "Tell me," she said. "Did we get them?" "Yes, Admiral. The Scareth are retreating. We won." Tanaka closed her eyes and let out a long breath. "Good," she whispered. "Good." On the surface of Valoria Prime, Kethra watched the last Scareth ships flee into hyperspace. She was crying. She did not know when she had started, but she could not stop. So many had died. So many humans had given their lives for her. People she had never met, from a world she had never visited, had fought and bled and burned for a stranger who had simply done the right thing. Ambassador Okonkwo stood beside her, his face tired but satisfied. "It's over," he said quietly. "Is it?" Kethra's voice trembled. "The Scareth will come back. They'll want revenge. This war isn't over, it's just beginning." Okonkwo shook his head. "No, it's over. Watch." He pointed at the sky, where a new ship was appearing, a Scareth diplomatic vessel, flying the white flag of surrender. "They're going to surrender?" Kethra could not believe it. "They have to." Okonkwo smiled grimly. "They just lost half their fleet to a species they thought was prey. Their whole empire is watching. If they keep fighting and losing, others will smell weakness. Rebellions, invasions, civil wars." He shrugged. "Better to make peace and lick their wounds." Kethra wiped her eyes. "What happens now?" "Now," Okonkwo said, "we tell them our terms, and they accept. Every single one." His voice hardened. "They picked this fight. They don't get to decide how it ends." The peace negotiations were short. The Scareth had no leverage, and they knew it. Earth's terms were absolute. Full pardon for Kethra, formal apology to Valoria, reparations for the damage caused, release of all political prisoners held by the Dominion, and a binding treaty promising that no action would ever be taken against anyone who helped a human. The Scareth ambassador protested. "This is outrageous. You fought an entire war over one person." Ambassador Okonkwo leaned across the table, his eyes cold. "Yes, and we'd do it again. For anyone. That's the point." He smiled. "Understand this. Hurt one human, or anyone who protects a human, And you answer to all of us. Every single time. Without exception. Without mercy. The ambassador swallowed hard. Do we have an agreement? There was a long pause. Yes, the Scarith said finally, his voice bitter. We have an agreement. Okonkwo nodded. Good. He stood up and walked out of the room without looking back. The war was over. Earth had won, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The memorial was held on the steps of the Valorian capital, under a sky that had been filled with fire just weeks before. Thousands of people had gathered, Valorians, humans, and representatives from dozens of other species who had come to witness history. They stood in silence as the names of the fallen were read aloud, one by one. A river of names that seemed to go on forever. Captain Emily Morris, Commander James Rodriguez, Ensign Sarah Kim, and hundreds more humans who had given everything for a stranger from a world they had never seen. Kethra stood at the front of the crowd, wearing a simple black dress that the humans had given her. She had not stopped crying since the ceremony began. Every name was a knife in her heart, a reminder of the price that had been paid for her life. Beside her stood Lieutenant Maya Chen, fully recovered from her injuries. She wore her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest, her back straight and proud. But her eyes were wet too. I'm sorry, Kethra whispered when the last name was read. I'm so sorry. Maya looked at her. For what? For all of this? All these people? They died because of me, because I couldn't just walk away. Kethra's voice broke. If I had known, if I had understood what would happen, you would have done the same thing. Maya said quietly. I know you would have. That's who you are. Kethra shook her head. How can you say that? Your people, my people made a choice. Maya's voice was firm but gentle. Every single one of them. They knew the risks. They knew they might die, and they came anyway. She reached out and took Kethra's hand, not because someone ordered them to, because they wanted to, because that's what humans do. The ceremony ended, and the crowd began to drift away. But Kethra stayed where she was, staring at the memorial wall where the names of the fallen had been carved into stone. A shadow fell over her. She looked up to see Admiral Yuki Tanaka, walking slowly with the help of a cane. The Admiral's face was scarred from the battle, and she moved like someone who had earned every one of her years. But her eyes were bright and alive. You must be Kethra, Tanaka said. I've heard a lot about you. Kethra bowed her head. Admiral, I don't know what to say. What you did. What I did was my job. Tanaka sat down on the steps beside her, groaning slightly. Getting old is terrible. Don't recommend it. You almost died, Kethra said. You flew your ship into the enemy flagship. For me, Tanaka shrugged. Seemed like the thing to do at the time. She looked out at the crowd, at the humans and Valorians mingling together, at the children playing while their parents talked. Besides, it wasn't just for you. It was for everyone. Every species out there that thinks kindness is weakness. Every empire that thinks they can bully the small and the helpless. She turned to look at Kethra. You saved Maya. One small act of courage, one moment of compassion, and look what it started. She gestured at the scene before them, your people and mine, standing together. A message sent to every corner of the galaxy, all because you refused to look away. Kethra was silent for a long moment. Then she said, What happens now? The Scarith surrendered. But they won't forget. They'll want revenge. Maybe. Tanaka smiled. But they'll think twice before they act. And so will everyone else. That's the point. She patted Kethra's shoulder. You gave us something precious, you know. Something we didn't have before. What? A chance to show who we really are. Tanaka's smile faded, replaced by something more serious. Humans have done terrible things in our history. Wars, cruelty, hate, we've been monsters too. But we've also been heroes. We've stood up for the weak. We've fought for justice. We've loved each other even when it hurt. She shrugged. This war, it let us be the best version of ourselves. And we have you to thank for that. She stood up slowly, leaning on her cane. Take care of yourself, Kethra. You've earned it. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Kethra sat alone for a while, watching the twin suns set over the crystal mountains. The sky turned pink and gold and purple, just like it had on the day she was arrested, the day everything changed. Footsteps approached. She turned to see Maya walking toward her, holding something in her hands. "I have something for you," Maya said. She sat down beside Kethra and opened her hands. It was a small pin, the same pin Kethra had been given at the human outpost, the one with Earth's symbol. But this one was different. It was made of gold, with small diamonds set into the design. It sparkled in the fading light like a captured star. "This is the Medal of Earth," Maya said quietly. "The highest honor our government can give. It's never been awarded to a non-human before." She smiled. "Until now." Kethra stared at the pin. Her hands were shaking. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "I didn't do anything special. I just helped someone who needed help. That's exactly why you're getting it." Maya took Kethra's hand and pressed the pin into her palm. "That's what the medal is for. Not for fighting, not for winning wars, for showing compassion when it would have been easier to walk away." She closed Kethra's fingers around the pin. "Wear this. Anywhere you go, any trouble you find, show this. It means you're one of us now. It means Earth has your back. Forever." Kethra looked at the pin, then at Maya, then at the sky full of stars above them. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were going about their lives, working, playing, loving, fighting, living their short, intense, beautiful lives, and all of them, every single one, would fight for her if she needed them. "I don't understand," she said softly. Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. I'm just a doctor from a small planet. Why would you go to war for me?" Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My grandmother used to tell me a story about a man who found a starfish on a beach. There were thousands of starfish, all dying in the sun, and he was picking them up one by one and throwing them back into the ocean." She smiled at the memory. Someone asked him why he bothered. He couldn't save them all. It was meaningless, and he picked up another starfish and threw it into the water, and he said, "It mattered to that one." Maya looked at Kethra. "You saved me when you didn't have to. You risked everything to help a stranger. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it was just one small act. But it mattered to me. It mattered to my family. It mattered to everyone who loves me." Her voice grew stronger. "That's why we fight. Not for glory or power or territory. We fight because every person matters. Every act of kindness matters. Every life is precious enough to defend." She shrugged. "Maybe other species think that's stupid. Maybe they think we're weak for caring. But I think it's the best thing about us." Kethra felt tears rolling down her face again. But this time, they were different. This time, they felt like healing. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Maya smiled. "Welcome to the family." They sat together as the suns set and the stars came out. Two people from two different worlds, bound together by something stronger than blood or duty or politics. In the months that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. It was told in trading posts and military academies, in royal courts and refugee camps, wherever beings gathered and shared tales of wonder. The story of the human war. The story of the alien, who showed mercy. The story of what happens when you save a human. Some species laughed at first. They called it propaganda, exaggeration, myth. But then they started to notice things. Human traders who gave fair prices, even when they could cheat. Human soldiers who protected civilians even at cost to themselves. Human diplomats who kept their promises even when it hurt. And slowly, carefully, other species began to change how they treated humans. Not out of fear, or not only fear, but out of something else. Hope. Maybe, some of them whispered, there was another way. Maybe you didn't have to be cruel to survive. Maybe kindness wasn't weakness after all. One by one, new treaties were signed. New alliances formed. New friendships began. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known. Be kind. Because you never know who's watching. You never know whose life you might save. You never know what your one small act of compassion might start. Kethra returned to her work as a doctor, but she never forgot what she had learned. She wore the Medal of Earth everywhere she went, and wherever she went, people knew what it meant. They knew she was protected. They knew she was family. And sometimes, when the twin suns set and the stars came out, she would look up at the sky and think about all those humans out there, living their short, bright lives, burning like flames against the darkness. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the wisest or the most powerful, but they were kind, and in the end, that made all the difference. The message echoed across the stars, unspoken but understood by every species that heard the story. Be good to humans, because if you hurt them, they will come for you with fire and fury and endless determination. But if you save one of them, they will remember. They will protect you. They will stand beside you against any enemy, any odds, any darkness. Save a human, and you gain something no amount of money or power can buy. You gain a family that spans the stars, and that family never forgets.